Good vibrations.
This episode, I've got a returning guest, and I'm actually going to use what I wrote about him the last time he was on to introduce him for this episode, since this still sets the scene just as well as it did back then for what we're going to talk about today. So, every time you think the controllers of the music industry have debased and toxified entertainment as far as is possible, the sick, diseased demons sitting atop these industries find new ways to take things even lower. And every time I think they've dredged the very bottom of the cesspit, they find a way of going a level beyond that. So, guest in this episode is Rhys, proprietor of the Schism podcast. And fortunately, he can bear to wade through so-called hip-hop culture of the 2000s to identify and comment on the insane satanic agendas being aimed at Gen Z. So, welcome back, mate.
Thank you. What an intro.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one, I think. So, as many listeners will know, I used to be a club and radio DJ, and I specialised in so-called urban music, hip-hop and R&B. But what I played in the 90s and early noughties was very different to what is being put out today under those labels. So you got stuff today being labelled hip-hop, which is nothing of the sort. And even in the 90s, I could see that things were starting to change towards the end of that decade. And clearly there were agendas being pushed then, but they were nothing compared to what's getting pushed through this culture these days. So, you know, it was the popularization of materialism and the glorification of certain brands back in the day. And of course, there was gangster rap, the glorification of criminal lifestyles, talking about slinging crack and doing drive-by shootings and stuff. And these were clearly agendas. But even those, I would argue, were nothing compared to what this so-called music is getting used to push today. So I turned my back on all of that many years ago, and now I play soulful, uplifting house because it's the only contemporary music I can still stand to listen to. But I have been making an exception for the whole P Diddy fiasco and keeping an eye on that situation because that character harks back to the times when I was active in the industry. So I think we should start there today because all these allegations about P Diddy and what he's said to have been involved in are shocking a lot of people, whereas guys like us have been talking about this for years. So we don't need to go into all the sorry, sordid details because I did a couple of recent shows with Lou Collins and Maya. But it is worth having a general overview of this story because it's got value in that it tells us so much about the true nature of the music industry. And just as with Jimmy Savile, people shouldn't make the mistake of assuming that Diddy is merely a bad apple who somehow slipped through the net. So it's not for nothing that he's been labelled the Jeffrey Epstein of hip-hop, is it?
No. What a title.
I know, right?
Well,
An accolade.
well, obviously in our last chat, we spoke about the gay mafia in hip hop and we kind of zoned in on Cash Money Records and Birdman. But what's interesting is by the looks of things, it's exactly the same setup with P Diddy and Bad Boy Records. And we spoke about Birdman acting as almost like a pimp and him bringing in very young artists like Lil Wayne, who was called Lil Wayne because he was so young. He was the youngest member of the Hot Boys. Notice how we kind of hear all these names in a different light now. The Hot Boys, Bad Boy Records. It sounds very suspect, doesn't it?
Well, it does in current circumstances, yeah.
Yeah. How did we not see it then?
I know.
But yeah, he brought Lil Wayne in when he was an underage child, and so did P Diddy. He brought in people like Usher when he was 13 years old, and P Diddy also had an involvement in Justin Bieber and his rise to fame when he was also underage. And I don't know if you've seen, but there's some extremely suspect footage of Diddy and Justin Bieber where he's talking about, oh, he's under my custody for 24 hours and I'm gonna, like show him the ropes kind of thing. And it's
Every 15-year-old's dream, he says.
yeah.
Bloody
And
nightmare, I'd say.
yeah, right. Well, and he exactly the same thing happened with Usher. Usher recently went on the Howard Stern show, and he spoke about being invited to something called Puffy Flavor Camp, if you can believe it. And Howard Stern is, joking around with him. Oh, you were only 13 at the time. I'll bet you saw some things. And Usher says, yeah, I saw some stuff that a kid of my age shouldn't see. Now they're having a good old laugh about it on the show, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not what Howard Stern is envisioning, scantily clad women and champagne and stuff. I'm pretty sure this was like the
Yeah.
last days of the Romans.
I wonder if he'd want his 13-year-old child to attend an event like that.
That's what I mean. Like it being made light of in this way is just so bizarre, because it's not like you said, you wouldn't want your own child going there. It's not a joke. This is really serious stuff. But obviously, very recently, it's come to light that it looks like P Diddy was involved in human trafficking. It looks like he was running an Epstein-style blackmail operation. There's been reports of him having these puffy freak-offs, which are basically, full-on orgies, but everything being set up like it's a movie set. He's got the lighting, he's got the cameras, everything's got to be just right for him doing his thing, and he's getting everyone around him to watch him, like perform all these sexual acts. And this is well known within the industry. I mean, you've only got to watch episodes of Drink Champs, and there's more celebrities than I can name in the rap industry that are all joking about this. Oh, yeah, you don't want to go to one of Diddy's freak offs. Oh, that guy likes to party. If Diddy asks you to party, just say no. And they're all laughing about it.
Yeah. It's just the same as Jimmy Savile. All these BBC presenters, when the truth about Savile came out, were like, oh, yeah, we all kind of knew about it. Everyone knew what he was up to, but you just kept your mouth shut. And now people are saying that in the hip hop game about Diddy.
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, there was that episode, I don't know if you remember it, of Nevermind the Buzzcocks, where Jimmy Savile was on the show, and they were saying to Jimmy, you live in a caravan. What do you do in this caravan? And Jimmy's like, anything I can get my hands on. And they're all like, they're making faces and stuff, but they're laughing. Well, are they laughing now?
Yeah.
He was talking about young kids. It's not something to be laughed and joked about. But just like Weinstein, just like Savile, everyone in the industry seemed to know and didn't care. But now, obviously, everyone's outraged because, firstly, this surveillance footage has been leaked of Diddy beating Cassie Ventura, who was a famous pop star at the time that he was involved in. And this footage has even been shown on CNN of Diddy running down a hall wearing just a towel of a LA hotel, and, punching Cassie, kicking her when she's on the floor, dragging her away by her hair. It's really quite, hardcore stuff to watch.
His mother must be so proud.
Yeah. And if you remember, there was a scene in the movie Get Him to the Greek, starring Russell Brand, where Diddy is chasing after Brand and what's the actor called from Superbad? The fat guy. Well, he's not fat anymore. He's on Ozempic now, so he's lost all his weight. But
I don't know. Not John Goodman, no.
No. I want to say Seth Rogen, but it's not him.
I'm
but
very
yeah,
happy
anyway.
to say I missed that movie.
Well, it's not a great film, but Diddy and him are
Really?
running down the hallway, and Russell Brand is running down the hallway, and Diddy's chasing after him, like in exactly the same way. You know what I mean? Like he's like wearing a towel or whatever. It's absolutely bizarre. You think, what's the chances of this appearing in a movie and then this surveillance footage being leaked? And you're like, God, it's like
right,
deja vu. Very, very odd.
So that raises the possibility that the surveillance footage might be faked or staged.
Possibly. Or possibly they got Diddy to play this role because they knew that he was this type of unhinged character that would do this kind of thing.
And then he
Um,
did.
and then he did. Yeah, yeah. But if you remember, Cassie actually had a very promising career ahead of her. She released the single "You, Me and You," which was like a bona fide R&B classic, and she
Hmm.
should have been as big as Rihanna, but she wasn't. And I kind of feel like Diddy kind of imprisoned her and completely stifled her career because they met in 2005 and parted ways in just before COVID in 2019. And look, like I said, she should have been the next big thing, but her career never really blossomed in the way that it should. And I kind of think that Diddy clipped her wings in every sense. And a bit like R. Kelly, I think he imprisoned a lot of his victims within his house or his grounds.
Yeah. A lot
And
like R. Kelly, it would seem.
yeah, and maybe he'd go down for a similar amount of time because R. Kelly's in prison for 30 years. So I don't
Yeah.
think he will see the light of day again.
I mean, if Diddy Sean Combs stays out of jail, it will be a frigging miracle, or it will be absolute proof that he's high level connected, probably a Freemason or similar, and he's got friends in high places that are going to protect him. Because how do you walk away from these kinds of allegations? So many of them, and so extreme in nature.
Yeah.
If he
Well,
doesn't go to jail, it will tell us everything we need to know.
yes. Well, Kanye, or Ye, should I say now, famously referred to Diddy as a Fed on Drink Champs, and he's gone on record to say that a few times. And there's been talk of Diddy having ties with the CIA, like Epstein, and
Yeah.
who's to say that someone like that isn't working with intelligence agencies in human traffic operations, in blackmail operations, getting compromat on all these famous, not just hip hop stars, but industry people.
Prince
And
Harry and all sorts.
yeah, and feeding that information back to intelligence. Actually, I just remembered the fella's name from Getting to the Greek, Jonah Hill. That's the guy I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. He was in
I knew
Wolf of
it. I
Wall
knew it would
Street.
come to me.
Okay.
Wolf of Wall Street. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about the gay mafia in hip hop, and I just mentioned to you earlier that if these revelations had come out in the 90s about Diddy or Busta Rhymes, we got this story emerging now where a
Mm.
former security guard for Busta Rhymes alleges that he would request fun boys in his club sections and refers to him as a super zest monster. So he's implying that Busta Rhymes likes young boys. If this story had come out in the 90s, people would have been shocked because that was the culture at the time. As I've said many times before, I'm not saying that's right and correct. I'm just observing that that would have been the case because it was not culturally acceptable in the 90s for rappers to come out as gay because it was a very macho, sort of alpha male dominated genre. But from what we're seeing, if these stories are true, it would appear that there's a whole load of rappers and industry executives and such who are in fact gay and have been for all this time, but it's only just coming out now. And this would be a systematic thing. So it would be a requirement for your success that you take part in orgies and freak offs and all this kind of stuff, because that's the way the industry operates. That's how sick it really is, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think another systematic thing as well is artists such as P Diddy, if you could call him an artist, will recruit young artists like Usher or Justin Bieber, and in turn, they will recruit artists because actually Usher, who was, I believe, a victim of Diddy himself, going to Puffy Flavor camp when he was 13, Usher had a part in then finding Bieber and bringing him to Diddy. So similar to any sex trafficking operation, you see the kind of chain of command, and actually the victims then become, let's not say abusers, but procurers.
Handlers,
Some,
maybe.
yes, like a little bit like Ghislaine Maxwell. She wasn't necessarily doing the abusing like on an Epstein scale, but she was certainly procuring the next girls for Epstein.
Yeah.
But there's some footage actually of Puffy quite drunk and intoxicated with Kevin Hart and Usher. I don't know if you've seen this, but he kind of slips up and he mentions, he's talking about the old times, and he says, "Oh, I remember when me and Usher used to wake up in the morning together and we used to fight over the frosted flakes." And
Yeah, I've seen that one.
suddenly Usher and Kevin Hart sort of look at him as if to say, "Mate, what the hell are you saying? Shut up."
Yeah.
And Puffy tries to kind of backtrack, and it's all very, very awkward. If anyone wants to watch this, just go into YouTube and type in Puffy Frosted Flakes. It will come straight up.
It's
But
like he lets his guard down because it's so normal for him.
mm,
He does this sort of stuff all the time, allegedly. So he slips up sometimes and it just comes out because to him, it's just the way you are. But
yeah,
for anyone else, it's shocking to hear that.
exactly. Yeah. And it was Usher all them years later that helped find Justin Bieber and kickstart his career. And who did he lead him straight to? Puff Daddy. And you can watch footage of Puff Daddy and Justin Bieber when Justin was a little bit older, and suddenly the atmosphere is very different. And Puffy's saying, "Oh, why don't you call me anymore? You don't come around and party like you used to." And Justin looks a little bit like how kids used to look in the presence of Jimmy Savile, very uncomfortable. You can tell his skin is crawling being around this guy because he is an out and out predator.
Yeah. We should probably point out for people that might not know that P. Diddy and Puff Daddy are the same individual. So it's Sean Combs. And when he first emerged, he was known as Puff Daddy or Puffy. And I've heard a story that he earned that nickname when he was a kid because when he didn't get his way, he used to puff his chest out and sort of huff and puff and storm off because he's somebody that's used to getting what he always wants. And there's a
Mhm.
video you can get online where Puffy destroys an office. You've probably seen this one. He's on the phone and he puts the receiver down, and he's not like the news that he's just got on the phone, and he destroys his office and he screams, "I'm a savage. I have to get what I want." And so he apparently earned the name Puffy from that. And then later in his career, he became P. Diddy and then Diddy. And I have to wonder if there's a clue in his naming there, because Diddy is one step away from Diddley or Diddler, and it's also one step away from P Diddy. So I do think that sometimes we get a cult mockery in the naming of some of these artists. Another one would be Lil this, Lil that, Lil Wayne, Lil Nas X. It's not exactly flattering for a male to refer to themselves as little, and yet we get it throughout the industry. So I think there are elements of occult mockery going on, and probably the odd clue in the naming of some of these individuals.
Well, I think a lot of this kind of Lil naming, God, we sound so white when we try to say Lil, don't we? Um, is almost like saying you're my bitch. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
almost a way of kind of branding someone as, you're the pimp and they're just Lil whatever. But maybe to avoid confusion then, rather than calling him Puffy or Diddy, let's just call him the Diddler.
Diddler, yeah, that'll do it. Yeah.
I think that suits him more.
It probably does. And all these stories are connected. I covered the one involving Africa Bambaataa many years ago. So he's revered as a sort of godfather of hip hop culture, one of the founding fathers. And a story emerged in 2016 where two members of the Universal Zulu Nation, which he formed, accused him of having sexually molested them when they were minors, when they were young lads. So his reputation was somewhat tarnished back in 2016, but as far as I'm aware, he's still walking around a free man and he's still getting booked to do shows overseas. And we should probably throw into the mix Tim Westwood, the hip-hop DJ who's been a gatekeeper for the UK scene for the past 4 decades or so. He's been embroiled in allegations for the past couple of years that he sexually molested a bunch of young girls, all black, one as young as 14. So a trend is starting to emerge here, particularly when you put R. Kelly into the mix as well. So all these leading figures, these major names, these gatekeepers, these luminaries for the scene, all seem to have these allegations hanging around them.
Yeah. And with Puffy as well, sorry, the diddler, it doesn't stop with the sex trafficking allegations and everything else. You know, a lot of people surrounded by the diddler have ended up dead. You know, everyone that was connected to his to the Uptown record label has died. You know,
Yep.
Heavy D, Andre Harrell,
Yeah.
Kim Porter, you know, quite a few in suspicious circumstances as well. And the only two that are left is the diddler and Alan. Can't remember his second name, but he nearly died recently as well. So, you know, a lot of people are winding up dead around this guy, and of course, Notorious B.I.G., who it's recently come to light. I'm not sure if you've watched the interviews from Gene Deal, Puffy's ex-bodyguard, but he's gone into great detail because he was there on the day that Biggie was actually shot. And he's gone into great detail about how that whole incident was allowed to happen. And essentially, you know, it might not have been the diddler that set up. I'm loving calling him the diddler. It's kind of like the Riddler. It makes him sound like an evil, like villain.
Exactly.
Which he basically is. And Puffy kind of set up that whole thing so it was allowed to happen. And I think Biggie was sacrificed so Puffy could be spared, essentially. And look how he cashed in afterwards. It's come to light Biggie was completely broke when he died. He hardly had a penny to his name. So this whole, you know, the way he was presented in all these music videos of being this, you know, millionaire with the champagne and the bling and all the rest of it was all fake. Biggie was completely broke. He had no money. He couldn't even bail Tupac out of jail, which is how that whole beef started, because he literally didn't have the bail money. He died broke, and Puff Daddy completely cashed in afterwards. He obviously had his big hit, I'll Be Missing You, where he was rapping about, oh, you and me used to go shopping for kicks, and, you know, we were best buds. Gene Deal is like, they were not mates like that. Like, they just weren't friends in that way.
I used to have a favorite meme that I used to post. It was a picture of Puffy, and the caption was, sang about the night they took his friend, rode in a separate car. Phew.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And everyone around Puffy was saying, don't let him go to LA. Don't let him go to this party.
Yep.
Don't let this happen. And Puffy was like, no, it's fine. Let him go. As you said, he wasn't with him. And he obviously gave the tip off, told them where he was going to be in in exchange for him being spared, and then him massively profiteering off his death, not just off the record that we just named, like the tribute record, but off all Biggie's music, because of course Puffy owned all the rights for that. And you know, you've got to look in these cases like you would any case. What's the motive? Who profiteers the most off of this? And I think in the case of both Tupac and Biggie, it was their own camps. So I think Puffy allowed Biggie to die, and Suge Knight and the people surrounding Tupac allowed him to die, and they basically blamed it on the, you know, opposing sides.
East Coast, West Coast beef.
Yeah.
And you got the album, the posthumous album for Biggie, Life After Death, which I think was released a few days before he died, March 9th, 1997. And obviously sales went through the roof, as you say, and Puffy profited hugely from that. But the symbolism, the imagery involved in that album basically have Biggie dressed up in a funeral suit. And it's very dark, and it was shot in a cemetery. The photo shoot was done there. So it's got an element of death all about it. And it absolutely smacks of foreknowledge on the part of Puffy and others of what was going to happen. I mean, what are the chances of an artist putting out an album called Life After Death and then dying a few days after it's released?
Yeah, they definitely knew it was going to happen, and the whole thing, like I said, was allowed to happen. I mean, on the subject of people, it's a bit off subject really, but it just popped into my head. I always think this about Kurt Cobain, because it was sort of split, wasn't it, into two camps: people that believed he committed suicide, people that believed Courtney Love was responsible. But who's the main person that has profited from Kurt's death? Who's the main person that's now in a band the size of U2 and it's going
to be Dave Grohl.
It's Dave Grohl. He's what Puff Daddy is to Biggie to Kurt Cobain. The hero, the survivor. Oh, and also the guy that's raked in the millions. Yeah, makes you think for sure.
Certainly does. So, yeah, that's Diddy. I mean, any further points on Diddley before we move on to Drake and Kendrick Lamar? Another story.
So you're calling him Diddley, and I'm calling him the Diddler. So
I could call him P Dodie, allegedly.
Like Dodie out fired?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
who also had an unfortunate end in a car, just like Biggie.
Yeah.
In the same year.
Yep.
97.
Well, I think that's about all. Oh, yeah, the same year too. Wow. I think that's about all on Diddy, but someone else that we mentioned in passing last time when we were talking about R. Kelly being, the ladies' man of R&B, and we briefly mentioned Drake because we said, oh, he's kind of taken that title now, and he's kind of the ladies' man of rap. And then not that long after, because we only had our first chat last year in 2023, all this stuff's come out about Puffy, the Diddler, and all this stuff has now come out about Drake as well.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yep.
The Drake stuff probably in the wake of the Diddley thing, because all it takes is for somebody to come forward and launch these accusations, and then others feel more confident to come out with their own claims. And so Drake's found himself embroiled in his own personal scandal in the wake of all the Diddley stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like nothing. It's just accusations really at the moment that have come out of this rap beef with Kendrick. But Kendrick's certainly not mincing his words. He's said in these diss records things like, you're trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. He's called him and his whole crew at OVO Records pedophiles. The front cover of one of Kendrick's disses is a kind of Google Maps style shot of Drake's house, and then you've got all these sort of little graphics like pins, and it's kind of made to look like, say you go on one of these apps where it's like find convicted sex offenders in your area, and then over Drake's house it's got like 10 pins in it, as if to say, yeah, everyone that's hanging around Drake's crib is a predator. But who knows what will come of all of that. But obviously Drake's a little bit like R. Kelly. He's kind of had some pretty suspect relationships. He's always doing kind of weird things on stage. I mean, there's footage of him inviting a girl up on stage that he's seducing and kissing her neck and all this stuff, and she's 17 years old. I mean, it's so reminiscent of the stuff that you've seen with R. Kelly, where he's doing it, not just in broad daylight, he's doing it on stage and everyone's joining in and thinking it's hilarious.
What about the stuff with Millie Bobby Brown, where he was supposedly giving her boyfriend advice?
Right, exactly. Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown, the young actress from Stranger Things, who again was underage at the time. She come out quite innocently in an interview and said, "Oh yeah, I've got Drake's number and he's been chatting to me." And the interviewer, quite rightly, was like, "What is, what are you two talking about?" And you would expect her to say something like, "Oh, he's just giving me advice, on the pitfalls of fame or being a young actor," because Drake, as we spoke about previously, was a young actor himself. No, she said, "He's given me advice on boys." Okay, that doesn't sound right, does it?
Yeah. And Drake's involved in everything. So he was, I think, an executive producer on Stranger Things. He certainly funded it. He basically put a whole load of his own money in, not really his, but, by name, into that show. And he's funded loads of other projects. I was looking at this rapper known as Dave. We'll probably get onto him later. But I see Drake premiered a remix single of Dave's song Wanna Know, featuring himself on OVO Sound Radio. So Drake's got fingers in many pies, and he emerges something like Diddy. He's absolutely everywhere. He's been allowed to become very powerful, at least on the surface. And he's a bit more than just your average rapper. Not that he was ever a rapper, because he just plugs himself into auto-tune and sounds like a friggin' demon all the time. But you know what I mean? And as you
Yeah,
said, he's an actor. He's a trained actor. Aubrey Graham. Before he
yeah,
became a
yeah.
so-called rapper, he was a bloody actor. It's right there.
Well, talking of him funding shows, I know that he has a part to play in the show Euphoria, also the name of one of Kendrick's disses against him. I'm not sure if he's, just a funder or the executive producer or what, but I know he has a big part in that show. Never watched it myself, but lo and behold, when I looked it up, oh, it's a load of teenagers having sex and all this kind of stuff. And you think, right, okay, what would be his interest in that exactly? But Drake's Drake's an interesting character. This isn't his first brush with controversy, because before all this latest stuff with Kendrick accusing him of being a predator and a potential paedophile, he was linked to the death of rapper XXXTentacion,
Yeah.
um, or Triple X, let's call him for ease. And Drake's alluded to this in his lyrics many times over, which he's either kind of taking this rumor and running with it to make himself look more of a bad boy and look more dangerous, or he really did do it and he's enjoying leaving these kind of subtle clues within his music to get a kick out of it.
Just remind the listeners of the circumstances in which Triple X Tentacion turned up dead.
Yeah, so Triple X went, I believe he was out shopping for a motorbike. He was in one of these showrooms, and apparently I read that it wasn't for him. He was buying a present for another rapper called Trippie Redd, but that's kind of by and by. He left the showroom, and then he was shot in his car. Now, some pretty gory sort of clips were released of him dead in his car, and he had a load of bullet holes in his chest, and he basically bled out in his car. Terrible tragedy, because the guy was very young and, in my eyes, very talented, and he was only just at the start of his career, really. But one of the Drake lyrics, for example, um, where he alludes to shooting him, he says, "Triple X, this is the only time we shoot below the neck." Now, like I said, he didn't have any headshots. He was all the shots that he took were in his chest. So that kind of seems to relate directly to the shooting of him. Some other lyrics, he says, trying to think, why you keep shooting if you know he's dead. obviously, because he had so many bloody bullet holes in him. There's another tune where he says, maybe I should do a 20, maybe I should break a 20, do a 10, maybe I should break that 10, do a 5, then if it gets live, do a 5 again. It's quite a complicated rhyme scheme, but then he says, if he held his tongue on that live, he'd be alive again, referencing when Triple X went on his Instagram live and was talking shit about Drake. He's basically saying, if he didn't go on that Instagram live, he'd still be alive now. And the little rhyme scheme that I did before, the break a 20, do a 10, divide it by 5, if you spell that out, it's XXX in Roman numerals. So he's being very cryptic, but each time spelling his name, saying his name in some way, followed by saying I shot him, or being very specific about how he was shot.
And Triple X is 666 in numerology as well.
Of course.
X, 24th letter of the alphabet, 2 and 4 is 6.
Yes. Yeah. So, he was a dark character also. I'm not saying that Triple X was a saint. I mean, he was he had allegations against him for woman beating, and he had a pretty heavy going criminal rap sheet from an early age, and I think he was quite a dark character himself, but he went on record to say, if I die, it was Drake. And he was in a bit of a rap beef with Drake, but not on wax. He was kind of going on Instagram live and talking shit about him, and really kind of juvenile stuff. I mean, he had a picture of Drake's mum, and he was saying that he wouldn't mind sleeping with her and all this stuff. And I personally believe that Drake did put out a hit on X because he was thinking, no, this is not good for my career, having this guy belittle me. And it's not because it wasn't on wax, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't like a back and forth on record. It was just this guy, doing all of this on Instagram live. I don't really think he knew how to respond to it, because he didn't really want to in turn, go on his own live and start doing it. I just think he wanted this guy out of the picture because he thought, yeah, this guy's a problem.
Well, he certainly doesn't know how to rap, at least with beef records in the 90s and early noughties, whether it was Cannabis versus LL Cool J or 50 Cent versus everyone. They could actually spit a rhyme. They could actually rap. I mean, Drake seems to so-called sing more than he raps, and it's all put through auto-tune, and to me he's just completely talentless. He's got no talent whatsoever, and yet he's been the biggest name out there for years, which again tells you a whole lot.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of evidence now coming out that he's had a whole string of ghostwriters working for him. Some audio's been leaked of some pretty famous Drake songs, and their originals, which are almost identical but sung by other much lesser known rappers. Right. And I think that's where a lot of his material comes from. He has a team of ghostwriters, and he kind of just picks, I'll have a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one. I mean, you could argue, there's a talent in kind of taking other people's stuff and turning it into your own, or turning it into a hit record, but he's not being upfront about it,
Well, to me, he's a lifetime actor who was selected for a prominent position in entertainment, and he was an actor early on, and it wouldn't surprise me if the plan was for him to become a successful, influential actor. But for some reason, at some point, the plan was switched, and they were like, well, actually, let's put him out as a rapper and a music industry executive, and he can become prominent in that way. And so he's just doing the bidding of his handlers, controllers.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, like, is it his time now to be thrown under the bus? I mean, the latest release from him is this outrageous song called Wagwan Delilah, which is a cover of the song by the Plain White Tees, and it's him singing in this Jamaican patois accent, Wagwan Delilah, and it's so bad it feels like a humiliation ritual.
Yeah.
off the back of this beef with Kendrick, where he kind of got absolutely taken to the cleaners. He's then released this song, and you just think, in what universe would you think this was a good time to put this garbage out with an artist that's completely unknown? And it just feels like it, well, like I said, a humiliation ritual. I can't get
Hmm.
my head around it at all. But this is something you see with a lot of these artists. I mean, someone we'll probably talk about later, Doja Cat, she turned up to the Met Gala dressed as a cat, and when she was asking questions, she could only respond by going meow, meow. And you see these famous rappers and Hollywood stars, like these men going on these catwalk shows, and they got full-on dresses on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It feels like, again, this is something you have to do. This is part of the deal for you to become famous or hang on to your fame.
Part
And
humiliation ritual, part MK Ultra.
yeah, yeah. Why else? I mean, there's no other explanation for this stuff other than, oh, they're famous and they're wacky. But you can see it in their eyes a lot of the time. They are humiliated. They don't want to be doing this. I mean, look at Sam Smith when he turned up to the Brits wearing that huge inflatable outfit, waddling along, and he
Yeah.
looked bloody miserable. You know,
Yeah.
these people are being put up to do this stuff, and they don't really have a choice in it.
Yeah.
Is my
It,
belief anyway.
It is interesting how every now and again they throw one of them under a bus, like R. Kelly, for example. And he got away with it for years and years and years. Because I can remember in the 90s, there were stories about R. Kelly. Obviously, he married Aaliyah when she was 15 years old, and that got exposed. And then there were stories of R. Kelly sex tapes where he was supposedly with all these young girls and he was urinating on them and all sorts of disgusting stuff. And then eventually, it's like his past caught up with him and they couldn't keep the lid on it all anymore. And so he had to get thrown under a bus and go to jail. But he'd been an asset for many years. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Diddley and Drake. Wouldn't it be intriguing if Drake gets thrown under the bus but Diddley doesn't, or the other way round? But it would be very disappointing if both of them get to walk away from this scot-free.
I don't think the diddler is going to. I think he's going to go the same way as R. Kelly. But watch this space, I guess.
Well, he'll probably have a great time in jail. He'll be very popular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I've not seen anything on the Drake and Kendrick beef in recent days. Have there been any new developments on that front?
No, the last thing that Drake put out was a song called The Heart Part 6, where he basically said, I mean, it was crazy the way he was sort of defending these allegations. I mean, there's a lyric where he says something along the lines of, I knew you were going to go down this Epstein angle. And there's another part where he says, I'm too famous uh, to be molesting young kids and getting away with it. It's like, you're too famous. That's not what the Epstein client list tells me. That tells me that when you reach this mega level of fame, you can actually do that and get away with it. So it's not exactly a good rebuttal or way to defend himself. But that was the last record, and he sounded deflated on it. He kind of sounded like, this is played out and I'm done because you're not spitting facts like I am. You're just coming with this hearsay and let's just leave it. It's like, okay, or
Yeah.
are you saying that because what he's actually saying has got some truth behind it and you just want this to go away? I mean, part of the reason I think maybe he put this Wagwan Delilah song out is so everyone's talking about how bad that song is rather than the allegations against him. But
Diversion.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A diversion. But it seems to have all died down now. But it was kind of promising that because the Kendrick song, They Not Like Us, that was number one, huge song. And the chorus where he's saying they're not like us, there's a real sentiment to that where he's obviously talking about Drake and the people on OVO records, but I wondered if part of the reason that record had become so popular is because celebrities in general, there's a feeling from people that they're not like us. They don't live by the same rules. They don't have the same code of conduct, morals, ethics. They're not like us. And I kind of wondered, is one of the reasons that song, apart from it being like a banger, because it's a great song, is part of that being such a success, people kind of resonating with that as a message.
Hmm. Well, it goes back to what you were saying about Usher appearing on that Howard Stern show. And he's talking about all these crazy things that he witnessed as a 13-year-old at Diddley's house. And the audience are all sort of laughing as if, oh, these celebrities, what are they like, what they get up to? So in any other walk of life, a 13-year-old getting exposed to that sort of thing would be considered outrageous and unacceptable. But because it's entertainment, music, people just seem to think, oh, well, it's just the way those industries are. It's just the way they get down, What are they like, eh? And it's somehow acceptable.
Yeah, if that was like the local teacher from the school down the road,
Yeah, right.
I think people would have a slightly different opinion about it.
Yeah, but entertainers just seem to get a pass for this sort of thing. It's like people say, oh, politicians, they're all corrupt, aren't they? And then they'll say, oh, entertainers, they're all into these crazy sex parties, aren't they? But why is that acceptable? Why is that okay?
Well, it's just been normalized over time.
Yeah.
And now I think the depravity is being normalized to an extent where almost anything goes.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good segue into the other stuff we wanted to talk about. You wanted to get into some of these large scale shows, these massive ritualistic music events. So, where should we start there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, starting with the most recent, I guess, you've had the recent Super Bowl, where this year you had Usher yet again performing in a very demonic looking stage setup that's like well, it looks like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. If you kind of look from a bird's eye view, which it was showing you with the camera, it was like some kind of a portal. Obviously, in our last chat, we spoke about the whole Travis Scott and Astro World tragedy, where his whole stage setup was like some kind of a demonic portal to another world.
Mm.
And that's, exactly the same sort of setup that Usher had at the recent Super Bowl. You also had Taylor Swift, who didn't perform, but the camera kept on showing her because, she's this massive pop star and she's dating one of the players that was playing in the Super Bowl. A guy called Travis Kelsey, I think his name is. He's heavily involved in pushing the old Pfizer arm spears, by the way. He's in a commercial saying, hey, go out and get your jab. So perfect partner for Taylor Swift. Probably a fake relationship anyway, but the camera kept him flashing to her, and she's with rapper Ice Spice. Don't know if you've heard of this woman. She's got like ginger sort of fro. She's mixed race, quite light skinned, but has definitely got the bootylicious kind of body. And it seems like her only talent is shaking her ass in every single video. But she's
Happily, I've avoided her.
well, she's like the next big thing, right? And this Ice Spice is a blatant industry plant because she come out of nowhere and suddenly she's got #1 singles. She's collaborating with everyone from Nicki Minaj to Taylor Swift, playing all these huge shows that we go into. And she's next to Taylor Swift in the crowd at the Super Bowl. And when the camera flashes to them, they're like, oh, here's Taylor, blah, blah, blah. Ice Spice does this bizarre, almost looks like she's doing some kind of a ritual or casting a spell. She sort of throws the devil horns up and then does all this weird stuff with her hands. And it's kind of blink and you miss it stuff, but it's gone up on YouTube and everyone's like, what the hell is she doing? And she's got this upside down crucifix that she's wearing as a necklace. and she looks like she's casting some kind of spell. So you've got
Probably
that
is.
going on. Yeah, yeah, you got that going on. Usher performing in a demonic portal, and it's just an American football game.
Yeah. That was the sort of overarching plot of Stranger Things, going back to that show. The opening up of a portal to this other realm, which lets in demonic entities. And it's like CERN or something, the sort of
Yeah,
stuff that we hear about coming out of CERN. And we're seeing that getting depicted in these big music shows, or supposedly music. Actually, they're nothing about music. They are ideal platforms for mass satanic rituals with
yeah,
television audiences in the millions. And so they gain the attention and the energy of huge amounts of people. And if you accept the suggestion that energy goes where attention flows, and you can actually bring things into being by focusing your attention on it, then that could well be, and probably is, what these shows are used for.
yeah, like energy harvesting. I mean,
Exactly.
I definitely believe that. And talking of CERN, do you remember there was this leaked footage of some kind of ritual taking place on the grounds of CERN? You've
Yeah.
of course got their statue outside of
Was it Shiva?
Shiva, the destroyer of worlds, right? Which
Hmm.
is obviously a quote used in Oppenheimer, which was the biggest movie, of last year. And yeah, you've got this bizarre destroyer of worlds statue, and there was this satanic looking ritual that took place on the grounds of CERN. The official explanation for it that was some kind of a prank or a joke. I don't think so. And you know, done by who? Like someone that broke into the grounds and done it? I would say that place would be pretty sealed up. And if it was people that work there, what kind of a practical joke is that? I mean, it's very
Right.
confusing.
Well, there's another question. If the music industry was really run by decent, respectable people, these executives who sit around boardroom tables and stuff, these sort of things would get shut down if they were decent people, regular people. They'd say, God, this is a satanic ritual. We can't have this going out. We can't have this televised. No, 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 this is not acceptable at all. And yet they don't. So event after event after event, and artist after artist after artist, and video after video after video all depict this kind of stuff. And that's all the proof anyone could need that the industry is not run by decent, respectable people. It's run by Satanists, dark occultists, and psychopaths.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you kind of know the language and the symbolism of these dark occultists, then you start seeing it everywhere. I mean, staying on the Super Bowl, the year before in 2023, you had Rihanna dressed head to toe in red, like the Red Queen. I think she was pregnant at the time. And the stage was like a giant pyramid, and she even threw up the Illuminati pyramid towards like the end of her set. Why is she throwing that up? I mean, Jay-Z and Beyonce used to throw it up because they're like, oh, The Rock, it's Jay-Z's like symbol or whatever,
Yeah.
for his record label. But Rihanna's got no part in that. So why is she throwing up the pyramid hand symbol whilst
Right.
the stage that she's in is a pyramid and she's dressed head to toe in red like a satanic queen? I mean, it's not like people might think that's a reach, but the point is it's every single time. Every single time there's one of these ceremonies. I mean, notice that they're called ceremonies as
Yeah.
well. Whether it's the Olympics and the ceremonies they have there, or things like the Super Bowl or Eurovision, which I want to get to later, it it's in your face constantly. I mean, in 2022 at the Super Bowl, you had Snoop, Dre, Eminem, and 50 Cent, but there was even stuff within that. Snoop was wearing. Do you remember in our last chat, I said about the blue and yellow of COVID and Ukraine and
Right.
that being pushed all the time. Everyone was wearing black and white except for Snoop Dogg, who was wearing this full blue and yellow outfit, and it's like all you could see.
Like he works for Ryanair.
Yeah. But they're doing this to subconsciously program people. So they're thinking of the colors that were used in COVID all the time and the colors of the Ukraine flag. And they were performing on top of these containers like Dre and Snoop and 50 Cent. And the containers that they were on looked exactly like the quarantine camps that we've seen people in China in, where they're kind of locked in these metal kind of containers. I don't know if you've seen these clips, but it was so reminiscent of that. It was just ridiculous. But that was obviously 2022, so it was in the height of COVID and the Ukraine war and all the rest of it. But it seemed like that's what they were trying to get across in that performance.
Yeah.
Each performance, it's like they have a different set of boxes that they want to tick. What do we want to pre-program people with this year? It's like, can't we just watch a bloody football game?
Well, Madonna at Eurovision in 2019 foreshadowed Convid with her performance. And that event has joined all the others now in being totally satanic. So I'm old enough to remember Eurovision when it was just this cheesy kitsch sort of thing, hosted by Terry Wogan. And you just had crap pop acts like Bucks Fizz and, Brotherhood of Man.
Yeah.
And it was just a cheese fest. But now that's become bloody satanic and dark, just like all the others.
Yeah. Well, this year, I'm not sure if you saw this, but you had this outrageously satanic contestant from Ireland, of all places, called Bambi Thug.
Happy to say I missed that one as well.
Oh, Mark, you've got to check this out. Honestly, YouTube it. Bambi Thug.
Really?
Eurovision 2024. This is the most satanic performance I've ever seen on live TV. And it was Eurovision.
Wow.
This is a woman that when she was being interviewed, she not only proudly announced that she was non-binary, but then she quickly followed it up with saying, "And I'm a witch," and screamed it. So
let me guess, the crowd cheered.
Yeah. This is on a live TV family show, fun for all the family. Sit down with the kids and watch it. And you've got this woman who's got black contacts in, devil horns. The stage show had like pentagrams on fire, screaming, strobe lights. A guy that looked practically naked, with these fang teeth implants and tattoos and horns, and he was running around the stage like dressed as a demon. I mean, this was like, it was so full on, I couldn't believe it. And the fact that it was on Eurovision, and like you said, this is something that used to have like ABBA and Cliff Richard and stuff like that on it. It was like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, what is happening here? It was like Hellraiser, the musical.
It's become the norm. People just expect to see that stuff in these shows. You can't get one of these events now that isn't satanic.
No.
At what point did that happen? At what point did we cross a line? And how has this been allowed to just fly under the radar without people kicking up a fuss and saying this can't be tolerated?
Yeah, and like, it's from Ireland. I mean, Ireland's a pretty kind of religious place, right? Like, shouldn't people be up in arms about this? Like, you're representing Ireland with this filth. Like, no thanks. But like you said, the crowd's there, woo, like cheering on, and like kids like, Satan's fun, watching this stuff, thinking, what exactly? But I like the fact that you mentioned the Madonna performance, because why she was on Eurovision 2019, I don't know. But that was obviously just before COVID. You had her prancing around the stage with an eye patch, which had a big X on it. Notice how much we've seen X.
There you go, Madam X.
Yeah, and obviously Twitter turning to X and all the rest of it. But this was way before all of that. You had all the people on stage wearing gas masks, including all the children. They were all holding flowers. COVID was to hit in the following spring. And then and then at the end, it was like a Ring Around the Roses. We all fall down, they all sort of fell to the floor at the end, like everyone's going to die. And if that wasn't enough, I'm not sure if you remember this, but the when they all sort of left the stage at the end, two of the people that left, on the back of their jackets, one of them had an Israeli flag and one of them had a Palestinian flag. So they managed to crowbar that in as well. This was 2019. I mean, talk about like being prophetic and predicting everything that was going to happen over the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, do people think that's just a coincidence? Come on.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But, no one seems to notice it. Or like the British Olympic ceremony where they had all these dying children in hospital beds and this bloody Grim Reaper. Do you remember this?
Yeah, demon presiding over the hospital beds. And somehow that's family entertainment.
Yeah. And again, it's like just like a few years before COVID kicked off. But as you said, they're obviously harvesting some kind of energy. What was the line you said earlier? Where attention goes, energy flows. Like they
Yeah.
know that so many eyes are going to be on this, not just the people that are there present, but the millions of people that are watching these things. And they must see it as some kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like everyone is, watching this, all their attention's going into it, and this is going to help these things that we want to manifest in the near future happening.
It's
And I
like
know
predictive programming, how that all works.
it's like predicting programming, but there's another element to it, isn't there? On one level it's predictive programming, but on another more kind of sort of esoteric, like occult level, it feels like some sort of a manifestation ritual. And whether these things work or not, I don't know. But if they're putting this much energy and money and all the rest of it in there, maybe they know something about how reality works that we don't. And actually, this does help manifest their plans by all this attention and energy being focused on these rituals. It helps these things to actually manifest in reality.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think it's certainly what they believe.
Well, it is. And that would explain why doing these rituals and putting all this occult stuff out there and the symbolism and the pushing of social engineering agendas, whether it's the glorification of transhumanism or the LGBTQ transgender agenda, because that's what it is, has become more important than making money for these corporations. For decades, the number one priority for any record company or film company or whatever is to make money, to make shitloads of money. But now they just seem to be more concerned with pushing all this stuff than making money. And they don't care if films tank at the box office. They don't care if artists don't shift units, as long as they're pushing these occult agendas. That's the priority now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was even, I'm not sure if you saw the ceremony. There was a ceremony at the Commonwealth Games that was hosted in Birmingham. This was only a couple of years ago, but they had like a huge mechanical ball, like very obvious, like vow worship going on, that had blood pouring out of its red glowing eyes. And there was like the Tower of Babel there and all this stuff. And you're just thinking, why is this always present in these ceremonies? And like, why
is it okay?
Why is it okay? And I guess the answer to that is most people are just unaware. But at the same time, are they not watching it and at least going, "It's a bit weird"?
I think they've been trained to think of it as art. We hear this often, it's an artistic statement. Oh, Rihanna's dressed up as a devil because she's just making an ironic statement. That's the way it gets written off.
Yeah, but signs and symbols rule the world, and I don't think people, until people kind of learn the language of these signs and symbols, it's always going to go over their heads. And unless you look into this stuff, you're just not going to know what it is. So, like you said, you are just going to think, oh, it's just art. And I think your average person probably thinks, as sad as this sounds, it's a bit beyond them. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's art. I wouldn't get it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Too
That's the,
avant-garde for me.
yeah. That's the kind of tragic thing about it. But
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's well, I guess you could call it art, but that's definitely not the main purpose of this stuff.
That's right. So you mentioned another showing for the X there with Madonna at the 2019 Eurovision, where she's dressed up as Madam X, this alter ego. So we're back to the X as with Triple X Tentacion. And there's another artist out there at the moment, Lil Nas X.
Mm.
So we should probably get on to some of these, take a deep dive into the cesspit.
Yeah.
So I feel that, again, you've got the Lil in his name. And it seems to be denigrating the legacy of the original Nas. So Nas was a rapper who was representative of the golden age of hip hop in the 90s. His album Illmatic is cited as one of the greatest hip hop albums ever made. It's a staple classic. And so I wonder if this is sort of shitting all over his legacy and what he stood for. And then you got the occult mockery of the Lil thing by the industry controllers.
Yeah, and obviously he's an openly gay artist. That's not how he started. I mean, he started like a lot of these pop artists quite innocently doing his song Old Town Road, and he was just, he was kind of I guess he was a fusion of hip hop and country and nothing too out there about the guy. But give it a few more singles down the line, and suddenly he's putting out music videos where he's giving Satan a lap dance, dressed in knee-high boots and a thong,
Like you
and
do.
he's descending from heaven, where he's like an angel, falling into hell, giving Satan a quick lap dance, and
Sounds like a weekend at Puffy's.
the diddlers. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's all fine. And don't worry that his audience is predominantly kids. What queers and kids, let's say. The same as a lot of these artists, really. I mean, if sure I'm sure if you went to a Madonna concert or Taylor Swift or Lil Nas, they're your two demographics, aren't they? Really.
Yeah.
But this sort of idea of like the fallen angels descending into hell is something that you see again and again and again in all these music videos. But Little Nas has taken it to the extreme. I mean, he done this Nike shoe collaboration. It was unofficial. It was kind of a bastardization of a Nike shoe from another brand called Mischief, but it was officially endorsed by Little Nas, and they were called his Satan shoes. So, as you can imagine, they had, a pentagram on them and an inverted cross and things like that. But what made these really, next level sinister was the fact that in the Nike air bubble, that you have on the back of the heel, it was full of human blood. Now, if that's not taking things to the extreme, I don't know what is. But there was a limited edition of 666 pairs, of course, and the shoes retailed for $1,018, which is a very strange random price for them to be, but not so strange when you look at the Bible verse 10:18, which would be the same numbers, which is I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So a lot going on there. But where this human blood come from for the souls of the trainers, I have no clue. But you had people like Billie Eilish wearing them, and not Billie Eilish, Miley Cyrus putting up a photo of her wearing them on her Instagram, saying, "Can you see Satan?" And again, this is just put out there like it's completely normal. People
Yeah.
walking around with shoes with human blood in the sole.
Yeah, if it really was. I mean, on one level, it's deeply disturbing, but on another, it's just you just have to laugh at it, to be honest,
Oh,
because it's so fucking ridiculous. Things have just got so absurd that it is comedic. It's like a Monty Python sketch gone live.
I think it was definitely human blood because the brand Mischief, which I think that's how you pronounce it, it's spelled MSCHF. They come under a lot of flack for this, and they put out some press release saying, "Oh, it was all done very sanitary, under sanitary conditions. We use clean needles and all this stuff." So it was
Oh, well,
definitely
that's okay then. I
yeah, yeah.
remember Lady Gaga released a perfume years ago, and it was said to have traces of blood and semen in it. Nice.
Mm. Yeah, a little bit like the Metallica album cover. Do you remember that?
Remind me.
There was a famous Metallica album cover, which was a mix of blood and semen. It kind of looks like just abstract if you look at the cover itself, but it later come to light. That's what it was. Something that I believe is used in spirit cooking, that people like Marina Abramovich
Yeah.
into.
Sex magic rituals
Yes, sex magic from Aleister Crowley and stuff. It all involves blood and semen,
and all kinds of
things like
fluids.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lady Gaga, as you just mentioned, she got taken under Marina Abramovich's wing, didn't she, for a little while, and she
Yeah.
was kind of uh, doing all these weird kind of rituals and things with her, and this spirit cooking. I mean, these celebrities love this Marina woman, who I believe is probably quite a high occultist. I think she's quite high up the pecking order,
Yeah.
and she's probably looked up to by these people. She's obviously known as a kind of contemporary uh, artist doing these kind of like art installations and things like that. But
Well, she was
I
friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Bill Gates. She's been pictured with Jacob Rothschild. Rothschild unveiled some artwork of hers before he allegedly died a few months ago. And Abramovich has been named as Jay-Z's spiritual advisor. What could possibly go wrong?
Wow. I mean, yeah, she is, because they all love Aleister Crowley, right? I think she is kind of the new Crowley. She's the high witch that they all look up to. And someone like Rick Owens and his wife, who basically looks like a demon, um, they strike me as similar kind of people. But yeah, that's outrageous. Jay-Z's spiritual advisor. I mean, as Kendrick said, they're not like us.
That's for sure. And another Lil is Lil Uzi Vert, whose name sounds like something different if you say it quickly. So, what do we want to say about him?
Yeah, well, that's the first thing, obviously. I mean, say Lil Uzi Vert 10 times quickly, and you're going to be saying Lucifer pretty quickly. But he says, "Oh, it's I'm named after Uzi, which is obviously a gun, and Vert means vertical because he's quite short." But I mean, that just doesn't make any
Oh,
bloody
I'm
sense.
buying it.
It's, at all, it's such a bad cover story. They've obviously named him something that sounds like Lucifer in a covert way, but he's another extremely dark character. Every time he does a stage show, you've got all these demonic visuals and these satanic rituals going on. In his breakthrough hit where he's singing "All My Friends Are Dead," he's drowning in a bathtub and it's then filled with blood. Another theme similar to the fallen angels and stuff. You see people either drowning in bathtubs or in bathtubs full of blood
Yeah.
so many times. I mean, you'd struggle to find an artist that hasn't done that at some point. Why are they all doing that? I mean, that's just so random, isn't it? Like, right, we're thinking for this video, we're going to put you in a bathtub full of blood. Yeah, sounds good. Like,
Yeah, no
why are
problem.
they all doing that?
Yeah, right. Well, there's death by bathtub as well. There's so many celebrities, particularly musicians, that have turned
Yeah.
up dead in bathtubs, from Whitney Houston to Dolores O'Riordan to Jim Morrison, allegedly. Matthew
No,
Perry from Friends turned up dead in his jacuzzi.
Is that how Jimi Hendrix died as well, in a
No,
bathtub?
not Hendrix, but we're told that's Jim Morrison, but I'm not buying that
Right,
one.
yeah. Yeah, well, like you said, Matthew Perry recently, he died in a bathtub, didn't he? And
Yeah.
shortly after that, actually, I remember Doja Cat doing this because she's got a video where she's in a bathtub full of uh either blood or black slime, and she done this video where she was dressed as a demon, where it actually had, you know, the logo of Friends, where like the TV show that Matthew Perry was in, and rather than saying Friends, it said Demons, and this come out shortly after Matthew Perry died. So there's all these sort of weird links you see all the time,
Hmm.
and like I said, it just cannot be a coincidence. But going back to Lil Uzi Vert, I mean, there's a famous clip of him on stage actually where he's saying to everyone, I'm going to hell, but you're all coming right with me. You know, you heard my song a million times and you didn't even know. And he's kind of sort of saying,
Yeah, you've had
well,
a spell put on you and you don't
yeah,
even know it.
yeah, yeah. Basically, he's kind of implying just by listening to his music, you're also partaking in this ritual. And I found it very, very interesting. Shane from Boyzone, of all people, you should have him as a guest on your show, actually. He's recently come out and he said the music industry is an extremely dark and satanic place. And he has personally witnessed not Boyzone albums, but albums being demonically prayed over before they're put out to the
Yeah.
world.
It's frustrating because he came out with all those allegations, which I would suggest are true. And it's stuff that I and many other researchers have been saying for years. You know, we've been bashing our heads against walls saying the industry is demonic. They cast hexes on master tapes, and people are like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's nonsense. Shane Lynch comes out and says it. Everyone's like, what? What? Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think he'd still be a great guest to have on the show because he's someone that is obviously, you know, been in the industry. Although Boyzone
Yeah.
were completely crap, they were a huge band at the time, and
Mm.
I'm sure he got a real insider's look on everything.
Well, yeah,
And what
maybe I should
we,
reach out to him if I can find him.
yeah, and what reason has someone like that got to lie? You know, why would he do that? He's already had
Well,
his success in Boyzone. He's got money. I'm sure he's got a, stable enough lifestyle. He's not profiteered from saying this. Why would he now come out with all this stuff? You know, what
mm.
reason would he have to do that? Because it's very easy for someone to say, "Oh, he's obviously a nutter," or "He's making this up for attention." It's like, yeah, but what kind of attention? That's the wrong kind of attention, isn't it? People saying
Mm.
you're mad or you're crazy or you're a druggie or something like that. I mean,
Brian Harvey's been saying the same sort of stuff for years as well, another former boy band member out of East 17. And, you know, he's really been put through the ringer. He's had death threats and
yeah,
been through mental health issues and all kinds of stuff. But he's basically saying the same sort of things as Shane Lynch about
yeah.
what the industry is all about.
And you look into the eyes of Brian Harvey or Shane Lynch, they look like broken people.
Totally. Yeah. Broken
They
men.
look like some kind of PTSD war veteran where you're thinking, what have you seen? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? They've got that vibe about them where I believe everything they're saying because it's written all over their face. And like I said before, what motivation would they have to come out and tell these stories? I saw a thing the other day with Bone Thugs and Harmony. I think it was Busy Bone, and he was saying exactly the same thing. Um, Records being demonically prayed over, and Bone Thugs, who were just a rap group, being forced to put all this occult imagery into their music and their artwork, and they had no clue what it was all about, but they just went along with it because they were told.
Hmm. And how many Brian Harveys and Shane Lynches are out there that would like to come out and talk about all this stuff, but for whatever reason they don't? Maybe they've been threatened, or they don't think they'll be taken seriously. But there's got to be a whole load of others that have seen a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not just going to be those two.
No, no. There's a lot of people that are obviously too afraid to come out and say it, or like your little Uzi Verts and people like this, they're kind of knee deep in it all, and they probably think it's great, I guess.
Yeah, they're protecting the bank balance.
And they might have fully gone over to the dark side for all we know. I mean, I'm sure some of these people are victims, as we've spoke about before, like with MK Ultra, mind control, and But I think a lot of them probably revel in it all, and they are dark occultists, and they get a big kick out of doing all this evil stuff.
Hmm. You mentioned with Doja Cat, she started out with this girl next door image, which is something they often do. They'll put an artist out, particularly a female one, and gain a fan base. So Miley Cyrus is another good example. She gets a load of young girls that like that squeaky clean sort of family friendly image. And then at a given point, she just flips the switch and goes straight satanic and starts pushing all this really evil stuff. And Doja Cat is another one that went down that route.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Miley Cyrus, of course, was called Hannah Montana when she was
Yeah,
squeaky clean, right? But then,
yeah. Coming out of
like,
Disney. Go
yeah,
figure.
yeah, another one coming out of Disney, and then completely flipped the script, like you said. But it was the same with Doja Cat. She come out pretty innocently. She was, a YouTube star that um, got success off of this ridiculous song where she was sort of mooing like a cow, and uh, it was a very sort of lo-fi video that she looked like she'd made in her bedroom. And I remember seeing it at the time and thinking, oh, this is great. But don't, a year down the line, and then suddenly she's turning up to these award ceremonies. Like I said, one dressed as a cat where she's meowing, one where she looked like some sort of a demon that had all her skin peeled off. She was painted red and had all these sequins stuck over her, and it just was absolutely b bizarre. And then she had a song called Demons, where she's dressed completely naked as a which kind of looks like a demon that's been burnt in a fire, let's say, and she's crawling around the ceiling. And there's another video where she's in this bathtub full of black goo, like I said, and her eyes are rolling back in her head, and she's looking possessed, which is another thing you see again and again and again. And you just think, wow, that didn't take long. You know what I mean? Like it's about 12 months from them being girl next door to demon from hell, and it's every single time. I mean, the rapper I mentioned earlier, Ice Spice, the way she's being put out there at the moment is like, she's just a girl from the block, like a rapper and singing about the streets and shaking her booty. I guarantee, give it another year and she will be full on satanic, because it happens every time. You can literally set your watch by it.
Yeah.
And judging from this recent Super Bowl thing, she just turned the same way as Doja Cat and all the rest of it. Doja Cat shaved her head like Britney style and was doing all this weird stuff on her Instagram live, and everyone was saying, "Oh, she sold her soul." And you know, even fans of the music seem like they kind of know what it's all about. Like, oh yeah, she's another one that sold their soul. Like it's just normal.
And Britney Spears was another one who, well, she came out of Disney, like Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, Miley Cyrus. And she had a video where she seemingly drowned in a bathtub. So I forget which song it was, but she's seen to sort of take her own life. I think the implication is by drowning herself in a bathtub. And then at the very end of the video, you see Britney coming up out of the water and she's laughing and joking with the crew. And it's like, oh, she's okay, really, folks. But that obviously would have been ritualistic as well. And there's another artist seen in a bathtub. So
Yeah,
there's something going on there.
yeah, but I can't. I also can't remember what song that was, but she slits her wrists in the bathtub,
Yeah, that's right.
if I remember. But funny that you just mentioned Justin Timberlake, actually, because I've always thought it's quite weird that he was also from Disney and a young child star, but he's never really done anything that demonic or say satanic. He's sort of seemed to stay squeaky clean. But
There was a little ritual he did with Janet Jackson at one of these shows. Was it the Grammys where her nipple came out? I think he was involved in that one.
Nipplegate.
Nipplegate, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
bloody innocent compared to the stuff we're talking about now.
well, that's the thing. Like pretty innocent, and there's always been a big question mark for me there. I thought, why is why has he been left out? But right on cue, I saw the new video for his single that's literally just come out, right? And it's called No Angels. And I'm not exactly a Justin Timberlake fan, but I thought I'll give it a watch, see what it's all about. And I couldn't believe it. It's him on a dance floor, doing his thing, being seduced by some women, and then suddenly all the crowd around him starts to turn a bit demonic, and then before you know it, it's like a full-on bloodbath, a little bit like in the movie Blade with the vampires, right? And they're all kind of bathing in blood, and then this demon woman that's trying to seduce him, she grows wings, and then this black goo starts coming out of her mouth into Justin's mouth, and then his eyes go white and he gets possessed. And I'm just thinking, you're kidding me. Like Justin Timberlake, this is what he has to do for a comeback, is it? And I kind of thought to myself, I wonder if in his case that was the condition. You know what I'm saying? Like, right, if you want to come back, Justin, because let's face it, it's been quite a while since he's been on the music scene. This is what you have to do.
Right.
Or maybe this is just his time. You know what I mean? It's like their call on you one day and his time has come. But I couldn't believe that after all these years, because he's not a young guy anymore, is he? And then I was thinking,
yeah,
really? Like at your age, you're doing this and thinking this is cool. It's just outrageous.
Well, I remember a few years ago, Robin Thicke took part in a ritual with Miley Cyrus at one of these shows. And he's dressed in a black and white striped suit, which is mind control. It's like a mind control trigger, and it's Freemasonic duality. And he's taken part in this really lewd sort of ritual with Miley Cyrus, who's dressed as a sort of sex slut, and he's like a pimp or a handler. And Robin Thicke was not a young guy at that point. He was probably pushing 40. And you think, how humiliating. This guy's been on the fringes of the industry for years and years and years. And he gets to about 40 and they put him in this bloody suit and make him take part in this ritual. There's no dignity in any of this.
He was actually dressed as a shibari clown, a little bit like Beetlejuice, if you remember. He had the same striped suit on as him. But very, very strange, and just completely unneeded. And like you said, for someone of his age, you just think, I don't know, somehow it's even worse than Lil Nas X or whoever that you could at least excuse because you're like, well, he's a teen.
They're young, yeah.
So
we've been talking about demons and the idea of these artists possibly channeling demons. And one artist we've got to talk about briefly is this individual known as YNW Melly. I'm pretty sure he's not related to George Melly. He's allegedly a rapper. And the thing that really stood out for me about him when reading up about him is that his real name is given as Jamal Maurice Demons. How many people do you know whose real last name is Demons? So he had this song in 2018 called Murder on My Mind. And it depicts him having shot some guy and the guy dies in his arms. And he's got blood all over him. And so in February 2019, the following year, he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder and faces life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or the death penalty if convicted. So it's like fiction becomes reality in terms of everything that was depicted in that song. He ends up doing in real life if the story is real. But I'm wondering what's going on there, because this was February 2019, so it's over 5 years later.
Mm.
and his retrial is paused and awaiting adjudication for the inclusion of digital evidence. So I know legal cases drag on a bit, but this is over 5 years later, and he's still walking around free. So what's going on here?
Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, like you said, his real name is Jamal Maurice Demons, who has demons as their surname.
Right.
I have no clue. So it's quite funny actually. So when you're reading up on this guy and they sort of refer to him, they keep saying demons killed, two people in a alleged drive-by, and they keep saying demons. So
Yeah.
it's very bizarre to read it. But yeah, he was arrested on 2 charges of murder that he staged. Basically, and they were two of his friends. Bizarrely, two friends in a car. He staged the whole thing to make it look like a drive-by shooting, but apparently he done an absolutely terrible job on it. So as soon as police arrived on the scene, they were like, "No, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever." And he got arrested for it. But bizarrely, his song "Murder on My Mind" that come out in 2016, and apparently he wrote that when he was first incarcerated at the age of 16. And like you said, it kind of lays out a story which is eerily similar to what happened only shortly afterwards. So it's kind of a wow,
Right.
yeah, like
Well, it's a bit like what you were saying about Get Me to the Greek with
yeah,
Puffy, in a bath towel kicking or chasing Russell Brand down a corridor or whatever.
yeah, right.
And that like became reality with Cassie. And you know what that reminded me of? That whole Demons bloody YMW Melly story. Snoop Doggy Dogg, as he was known back in the day. So he had his debut album Doggy Style, produced by Dr. Dre, came out in 1993. It had a track on it called Murder Was the Case, and it depicts a drive-by shooting in which he almost dies, but he gets visited by a demon who says, come over to me and I'll make you rich and wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. And then he ends up regretting it at the end of the song. And while recording that album in August 93, Snoop Dogg was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in connection with the shooting death of Philip Walder Merriam, a member of a rival gang. So this involved a drive-by shooting. Snoop and another man were charged with murder. Snoop was reportedly driving the vehicle from which the gun was fired, but both Snoop and his bodyguard, the other guy, were acquitted on February the 20th, 96. But it's quite similar because everything that was in that song then became reality. So are they manifesting things through these songs that they want to bring about? Or are they fake stories? Or, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's eerily similar. Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? Who's to say? But yeah, you do see it time and time again. I mean, YNW Melly had another song shortly afterwards with Kanye West called Mixed Personalities, that's talking about having, multiple personalities. So very MK Ultra as well.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, why would Kanye work with someone who's potentially an, an alleged convicted murderer? And it's like,
Because he's
what?
ordered to.
Yeah, it's very odd. You would think someone like Kanye would avoid doing a song with him, given his kind of stature, but obviously
Yeah.
not.
Okay, so we'll start to wrap up soon, but just a few loose ends, a few other bits and pieces you wanted to throw in there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I'd love to talk about. There's some themes in music videos. I mean, we've spoke about a few of them already. People in bathtubs, these blood baptisms, which is the same sort of thing. Uh, dipping someone's head under the water like you would at a baptism, but in blood. But you've also got stuff with black goo. And this is a constant theme. I mentioned it earlier with the Justin Timberlake video, this demon sicking up this black goo. You've had this Billie Eilish video where she's got this black goo. She drinks a pint of this stuff and then it's all pouring out of her eyes and her ears and every orifice in her body. You've had this time and time again in recent movies, Venom, where this character's sort of entirely made of this black goo. There's a Scarlett Johansson movie called Lucy. You've had it in
Lucifer.
Yeah. You've had it in Prometheus, where at the start of the movie, the alien drinks the black goo, right? Stranger Things, when the black goo takes the kid over and possesses him. And it's always that kind of theme, like it's some sort of a possession, right? You had a Lady Gaga perfume ad. She had this perfume called Fame. And what's in the video? Surprise, surprise, all this black goo, where it's coming out of a portal and sort of very similar to the movie Venom, where it's kind of growing up the person's arms and slowly taking them over, and they're kind of becoming one with this black goo, right? Very, very strange. You're seeing this time and time again. Now I've mentioned it, anyone listening, you know, you're going to see this. But I do find it very interesting because I'm not sure if you've watched these videos. You can see them on YouTube of graphene oxide, which is obviously a contents in the arm spears, the convid jabs, and how this graphene oxide moves when it's in the presence of certain frequencies or magnets, and it kind of moves like this liquid black goo, almost like it's like an entity, right? Now, I can't help but think there's a connection here, because like I said, it's not just this black goo sort of pouring out of people's eyes and it being vomited in their mouths or whatever else. They're kind of becoming one with this stuff. Like there's a transhuman sort of element to it, where they're being possessed by this black goo and being taken over by it. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting theme that I'm seeing more and more and more of. Just to put it out there.
Definite trend.
Yeah, so people can notice this stuff, because I think it's really important, like the information that we're getting out there, because like we were saying earlier, without, it's kind of like a magic eye or something. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And once people hear about this stuff, they will start seeing it everywhere. But beforehand, they would have never joined the dots together. They would have never have seen these themes. And yeah, you start seeing it everywhere once it's been pointed out to you. But yeah, it's a strange one. The black goo. Look out for it.
Well, that's why we're tasked with doing these jobs.
Yeah.
For some reason, to get this information out there. Somebody's got to do it, and turns out to be us. Yeah, diving in the cesspit, scuba diving. So in our last show, we got into a bit of your background, and I would urge listeners to go back and hear that show if they haven't. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. But what was your catalyst for getting started in this whole game and looking into this stuff? Was there a singular moment or event that kind of sparked your interest in these subjects, or was it a more gradual process?
I think it was a gradual process, but there's been kind of landmark incidents along the way. 9/11 was probably the first. I watched the movie Zeitgeist, which was a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
And watched a number of documentaries kind of breaking down 9/11 being an inside job and not what we were told it was. So that was the first real eye-opener, which kind of led me to think, well, if they do that, what else would they do? And what else have I been lied to about? But I think the real game changer for me was 2020 with COVID, and it was like right on my doorstep and impossible to ignore. And that was the catalyst that made me go from being interested in all this stuff to think, I've got to start a podcast. I've got to start putting this information out there. And it kind of galvanized me to actually do something about it. I think up until that point, my mind was gradually opening up to all this stuff. But the COVID thing was like a call to arms. And for me, I thought, no, I've got to start actually partaking in awakening other people to everything that's going on, because this is serious now. Right. And it's kind of like a gradual thing, right? Like one thing after another. But what I found was actually realizing that the music industry was just as corrupt and satanic as everything else. It took me a while longer to get to, and I actually found your work after I'd found people like David Icke and others, and it was an even harder pill to swallow because I'm such a music fan. You know what I mean? It was closer to my heart, and it was like, no, not the music industry as well, you know. And actually, it was a lot harder to sort of get my head around because, you know, I knew the medical industry was corrupt and, you know, the deep state and everything else. I wouldn't put anything past these people. But I think when it's celebrities and when it's musicians and people that maybe at one point you looked up to or admired, it's even harder to get your head around. The same with Hollywood. But I do think this is a change that needs to happen because these people are false idols. They're not who people think they are. And even if you love the music or the art or the movies, it doesn't mean that you can't face the fact that these people aren't who you once thought they were. You can almost still enjoy the art and separate the artist from the art. At least I can.
Yeah, that's what you have to do if you can have any music in your life and not chuck it all out. And I personally can't survive in life without some music. But with me, the biggest disappointment was Tim Westwood, to be honest, because as a DJ, I used to look up to him. I used to respect him. He used to have credibility. But, you know, in recent years, he's just become an absurd caricature of himself. And you realize it was all an act all along. But to hear these allegations against him, it's just so disappointing, man. So, you know, no more heroes, no more idols. You've got to let them all go because they'll always let you down.
Yeah, that's it. And that might sound negative to people, but actually it's not. It's the opposite. And it's
empowering.
It's empowering. Yeah, you're right. It's empowering.
So tell people about your podcast, The Schism. Where does that broadcast? Where can people find it?
Yeah, people can find The Schism at Spotify, Apple, Podbean. If you go into Google and just type in The Schism podcast, it'll pop straight up. We're on Instagram at schism.tv, Telegram at The Schism podcast. We've got exclusive video content on our Rumble. You just search The Schism. And yeah, we have chats like this every couple of weeks and guests on the show like yourself. And yeah, if people like what they've heard today, they should go and check it out and see what they think.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming on today. We'll do another one in due course. Well, for as long as the industry remains satanic and degraded, we will. So yeah, probably a few more, eh? But thanks for coming on today.
In the meantime, I'll continue wallowing in the cesspit or the black goo.
Yeah, please, so I don't have to.
My pleasure.
All right, cheers, mate.
Okay, fantastic. Cheers, Mark.
This is just a wrap. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up vibrations.